Okay, good morning. Welcome to the 10th Indonesian Economic Forum. The session this morning is on digital transformation, accelerating digital transformation. We're looking at it from an industry and sector perspective. And with that, we are very proud to partner with Castle Asia, who are our partners for another program called the Digital Dialogue. And we have here James Castle. Good morning, Pa James. Yeah, then we have Dr. Navin and Ian Betts, who's our moderator for the session today. We have actually in the room people who are experts in their fields, and there's a lively discussion planned. We also have Professor Nizam, who's the Director General of Higher Education in the Ministry of Education. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here in person. He's joining us online. Professor Nizam is here. Good morning, Professor Nizam. How are you, Pa? Could we have the volume up for the screen?
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning, Pa Nizam. How are you, Pa?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Thank you very much, Pa. So I'm just giving some introductory remarks, and I'm going to hand it over to Ian Betts, who's our moderator for today. This is the 10th year of the Indonesia Economic Forum, and I'd like to say my personal thanks to our advisory board who've guided us all the way here. One of them is Jim. James Castle has been on our advisory board from the very beginning. Thank you, Jim. We also have Ilham Habibi, who would be joining us in the afternoon session. We have Shinta Kamdani, who was there yesterday as a speaker. We had Gita Vriawan, and we have Sandiaga Uno. So these are the key supporters who have allowed us to reach 10 years, and we're very happy that we have a lot of participants here online. So our format has changed from being a conference in a room full of 300 people to a room of speakers, of 20 speakers. And we broadcast live streaming to about 1,000 people. We have 1,000 odd people at the moment who are registered watching through Zoom and YouTube. But in the next 30 days, all our content would be put onto social media. In fact, our new team has even set up a TikTok channel for short clips so that we can amplify the key messages that come out of the discussions. So we've changed after COVID, we have changed how we have our outreach. We are now reaching 10,000 people and not 300 people. So that's been a big game changer for us as well. So our messaging is able to reach a lot more people and a lot more young people. And we have even some, I think about 30% of the audience online are university students. So we are focusing a lot on making sure the youth are also able to understand where the industry is and what they're thinking about. And they'll be able to then have better decisions when they are ready for the workforce. So thank you very much. And I'd like to hand it over to Ian, who's our very competent moderator. Thank you, Ian, for taking care of this session. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Sachin, for that introduction. Thank you. Yes, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to everyone. I think we're going to begin with Indonesia Raya, first of all. Are we not, Sarah? We should all stand for that.
Jadi perlu Indonesia kebangsaan. Indonesia tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi palu ibuku. Indonesia kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku. Marilah kita bersuara, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semuanya. Bangun
Thank you very much, everybody. Please be seated. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone assembled today for this session of the 10th Indonesia Economic Forum. Congratulations, Sachin, and all involved at the IEF for this. We're very glad, Jim and I and the whole team at Castle Asia, to be involved in this partnership with you in the IEF, but also, and for the sake of this morning's activities, the digital dialogue. This half day is really focusing on the digital dialogue, and namely the acceleration of that digital transformation across Indonesia, which we hope to discuss during the course of today's event. We have you around the room. We have all of you as speakers. We have 3 core trigger speakers who will introduce you to in due course, and some keynote speakers who will make the main addresses and remarks. But just to set the scene about what is the digital dialogue. Digital dialogue is an initiative which was actually founded by Jim Castle, who originated the Castle Asia Indonesia program many decades ago. And the digital dialogue is designed to capture the science, innovation, culture, economic benefits, requirements, opportunities, and challenges, all with due regard to the digital transformation that is taking place across the country and indeed across ASEAN, all designed to promote Indonesia in the most advantageous and competitive space within ASEAN and the rest of the world, considering the size of the population, the importance of the country regionally, in APAC, and globally. We've already had 2 sessions of the digital dialogue. Some of you around the room, we're very happy to see were represented there and are with us again today. The first of those, with Dr. Ilham Habibi, focused on the major factors that are at play behind the digital transformation. What are those opportunities and challenges that Indonesia faces as a people, as a culture, as a government, as a body of commerce and industry in addressing, participating in the digital transformation and helping move that forward in commerce, education, industry, manufacturing, and all those other areas of business that we are engaged in. The second session focused more squarely on education, upskilling, human capital and human resources, what's required in all of those elements in order to drive forward the digital transformation that we're seeing played out across the country. Today, in this session, the largest session we've had with many joining online, we are looking at the acceleration of the digital transformation. Essentially, I'm inspired by a short conversation with Shoaib earlier, this is the next phase. The digital transformation is already a reality in Indonesia. It's here. And if you're not part of it, you're behind that curve. The responsibility that falls upon all of us now as leaders of commerce, business, the economy, trade, and government is to drive it forward and to assist in the acceleration of the digital transformation. We're very happy and proud today that our keynote speakers are Dr. Engineer Ilham Habibi, Chief Executive of the National ICT Council, Wantiknas. He'll be joining us online, or rather by a recorded video session, especially for this morning. We have Dr. Navin Rajagobal, Senior Director of the Singapore Management University. Welcome, Dr. Navin. And we have online, and we'll be starting with him, Professor Engineer Nizam, Director General of Higher Education, Research and Technology at the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of the Republic of Indonesia. Following their comments, our 3 trigger speakers will focus on the enabling technologies that are contributing to the acceleration of Indonesia's digital transformation. They will be looking at the innovations in, it might be artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, digital inclusion in financial services, etc. And they are James Elwes, COO of HSBC Indonesia, Martin Terpelovsky of Bumi Vata Technologies in geolocation space. Good morning, Martin. And Thompson Wangsawijaya, morning, Thompson. Avery Dennison. Looking forward to having you help to facilitate the conversation as we move forward. To set the backdrop, and before I hand over to Dr. Nizam, Indonesia, an enormously important economy and country within ASEAN, within APAC, and globally. In terms of its large population of 270 million people plus, the high penetration of internet and online services that we see across the country, and increasingly so. In terms of the economy and commerce, the enormous market scope, purchasing power, consumption, and expansion of demand that we're seeing in online services across the country. Also, the discussion on e-commerce, its growth and spread, and its the displacement of the traditional retail and consumer markets that it is introducing. And of course, the digital economy, growing year upon year exponentially into billions and billions of dollars and trillions of rupiah. Digital inclusion and financial services is certainly an element of the discussion we would like to explore as Indonesia's government seeks to bring larger numbers of the population into the online sphere, and as the government seeks to work the digital transformation through the classroom and in the workplace. Finally, in terms of government services, prior to my handing over to Professor Nizam, e-services that we are now seeing in the online space, licensing, immigration, ID, and personal data. Let's not forget about the importance of data privacy and cybersecurity as we embrace the digital transformation, and particularly as we accelerate that, because of course we are facing a world now where data breaches and cybersecurity are paramount in the protection of that data. So the regulatory environment, of course, is something that is playing catch-up with the digital transformation. Industry needs to support the government, just as government will be supporting the private sector in this. With that, I would very much like to hand over to Professor Nizam. Professor Nizam serves as the Director General of Higher Education, Research and Technology at the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, Republic of Indonesia. He's renowned for his extensive academic background with a Ph.D. and numerous professional certifications. He is a leading figure in shaping the nation's higher education landscape. Professor Nizam's role involves steering those policies that bridge the gap between academia and technological advancements, ensuring that Indonesia's educational institutions align with global standards. He has a commitment to innovation and research, and therefore plays a pivotal role in advancing the country's knowledge ecosystem. So thank you very much for allowing me to introduce you, Professor Nizam. We'd like to hand the floor over to you from where you are online, and we'll take the conversation further when we've heard your initial remarks. Professor Nizam, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian. Very good morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sehat, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. It's an honor for me to present before you in this very important forum, Indonesia Economic Forum. Please allow me to share screen to just give you a brief overview of how we develop talents to meet with the needs of the digital transformations that is currently taking place everywhere in the world. It's very interesting to see Indonesia is transforming into digital economy very rapidly. Now Indonesia is the fastest digital economy nations, with more than 167 million of populations are active in social media, and more than 200 million internet users. And Indonesians spend more than 7 hours a day, almost 8 hours a day, engaging or connecting to the internet. This is very high in terms of nation comparisons. And we see the trend of the technology is very rapidly moving, especially the coming of the AI, the maturing of the AI with the generative language processing late last year, which has bring a lot of opportunities to the future. Also the metaverse, blockchain, quantum computing, which is now taking shapes, which come to hyper automations datafications, digital immune system, which is the challenge for every one of us, and also the cloud system. And this Industry 4.0 has bring us to the disruption in all aspects of our life, both socially and economically. And this also brings opportunities for us to springboard into the future economy. But at the same time, the coming of the digital age also replaced a lot of jobs globally. In Indonesia alone, 23 million jobs will be disappeared in the next 10 years. And new competencies are coming and mushrooming, but many of those competencies, many of those professional jobs is now still not there. So it is in the process of creations. The challenge of global workforce replacement with the new competencies need us to respond with preparing future professionals with competencies that is not been available right now to the future. And what we can do is just to predict what will happen, and the best way to challenge this uncertain future is to create the future together. Although we can fathom the possible technology in the future, but it is still not there and it is still shaping and taking place. Like machine learning, deep learning, artificial neural network, also natural language processing, which is more and more mature by time, computer vision, which is now really taking shape, robotics, which is becoming smarter and smarter, and also reasoning, which bring all the old jobs into the new challenge of making use of the coming technology. The AI also disrupt educations in many ways, in all aspects of educations, personalized learning, gamifications, and many other aspects of educations is taking now is shaped up by the presence of AI. But at the same time, AI also challenged the current society, the loss of jobs, also the engagement of people with the virtual world more and more. We are engaged with the virtual world, and also the challenge psychologically, sociologically with the coming of the technology. And also the misuse of AI is really might happen, very possible in the future. Also, AI challenge the accountability and responsibility. For instance, automatic vehicle, if it is driven by AI and there is an accident, who will be responsible for the accident? Is it the AI? Is it the creator? Is it the car manufacturer? Or is it the engineer behind the technology? So there are chain of accountability that is difficult to sort out with the AI presence. And many futurists also worries about the future of humanity after the AI come to its maturity. So, but take that aside, we need to transform Indonesia to become more ready with the coming of the technology, AI, especially, in an ethical way. So it's very important to improve academic and research integrity into the coming of the technology. And for that, we also allocate quite a lot of budget to do research and development on AI, and also transforming the curriculum as well as the education community commitment and establishing the core values of integrity into academia. As we see the response of the society, the response of the industries on AI is also quite a mix. In the beginning, we see how it was rejected, the coming of AI, but now people getting more and more embraced into the coming of the AI, especially the generative AI. Even in academia, also we see the dual response to the coming of the AI. Those that embrace and those that challenge or make distance to the coming of the AI. And in dealing with the AI, many that take side or reserve the use of AI, for instance, use prevention through technologically, also through brute force by not allowing AI into the classroom, for instance. But what we need to do is to even develop talent pools for new digital competencies that is needed by the future job market. And what we currently doing is we transform our university to be more agile, to be more flexible through Campus Merdeka program, in which we can teach students with competencies that is not yet available in the in campus, like AI, machine learning, deep learning, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and many aspects of technological development. Also in research and development, we create research consortia on artificial intelligence, strengthening IDRAN, Indonesia Research Network, and fostering digital startups and joint facility of supercomputer for AI research. In developing the talent pools, currently we have more than 1,000 higher education institutions that offers information technology as part of the study program. There are more than 10,000 study programs related to digital technology, so many, quite a lot, with currently close to 1 million students taking this track. And we graduate more than 200,000 graduates per year on information technology. So in terms of human resource, actually, we accelerate the preparations or the creations of talent pools on digital related competencies. We also use micro-credentials to address need of specific needs in digital technology. Like we work with Microsoft Orbit, for instance, with 6,000 students, Cisco with 6,000 students. This is every year. With Google 9,000, with NVIDIA 3,000. So quite a big number. We create more than 20,000 graduates resulted from these micro-credentials every year with a very specific competencies like machine learning, deep learning, AI, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and the like. Also, we accelerate industry to university partnerships through development of hardware, software, and technology through matching fund. So what we do is we match every commitment from industry to work with university in developing research for the industry. And also we have AI Research consortium of currently more than 9 universities joining this consortium. And they share supercomputer and connected supercomputers. So nationally, we have around 100 petaflops for AI and big data research. And so this joint force between universities and industry, academia and industry professional, we hope that will accelerate the need for the talents, at the same time the need for research and development in information technology. We believe that AI and digital technology will here to stay, and we need to embrace and prepare talents to meet the need of the future, and also develop the technology to make use of the state of development of technology to the future. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I give back the time to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nizam. In a slight change from the program, in order to accommodate Professor Nizam, whose time is limited with us this morning, I would like to invite Dr. Navin to engage with you, if I may, Professor Nizam. I'd like to first of all introduce Dr. Navin Rajagobal, Senior Director of the Singapore Management University, who is here to address us as our keynote speaker this morning with you, Professor Nizam. This is a relatively new role that integrates key aspects of the student life cycle in the university. It's comprised of the Office of Admissions and Financial Assistance, the Center for Global Education and Opportunities, the Office of the Registrar, the Dato Koh Hui Meng Career Center, and a small team in the Office of the Provost. Dr. Navin is an experienced leader and educator in higher education, having previously managed a range of portfolios and programs at Yale NUS College and the National University of Singapore. Prior to academia, he worked with several Singapore government agencies and represented Singapore at the United Nations, ASEAN, IAEA, and other international negotiations. He received his Ph.D. from Monash University School of Political and Social Inquiry in Melbourne. Welcome to Dr. Navin, and we do have a presentation from you in due course, but in order to facilitate a conversation with Professor Nizam, we thought we'd bring you into that first and perhaps give you the opportunity to respond to the excellent presentation we had from Professor Nizam with very complex and rich tapestry of work that's being done in education across Indonesia. It's very clear in your comments, Professor Nizam. Dr. Navin, have you anything response to that before we go to your presentation?
Good morning, everyone. Please allow me to thank the IEF on its 10th anniversary. Pak Nizam, that was an excellent presentation. I think your presentation covered a lot of what I was going to say in my own presentation. I just had a question. At yesterday's session, Pak Gita and other speakers mentioned that there's a lot of resources, expertise residing in Singapore and other countries. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how Indonesian universities and Indonesian students can tap on these resources by way of collaboration and partnership, and also exchange, academic exchange, as well as internships. Singapore students interning in Indonesia and Indonesian students interning in Singapore, thereby getting expertise and experience in digital economy, and that might help to accelerate the digital economy in Indonesia. Appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Professor Nizam, what do you think? Exchange in education.
Yes, indeed. Every year with the Campus Merdeka program, we have 2,000 students do international exchange globally to Asian universities, to European universities, American universities. And next year, we plan for 3,000 students for exchange. We send our students abroad. But apart from that, we also have collaborations between university globally. So we have, for instance, with Singapore, RI, Singapore University Partnership, Rising University Partnerships. So RI, Republic Indonesia, and Singapore University Partnership, in which all public universities in Singapore or top universities in Singapore partner with top universities in Indonesia. We also have centers globally set. For instance, with Singapore, we also have the NTU with 4 universities in Indonesia setting research on renewable energy. So we also do similar thing with Australia. We also do consortia of universities with Japan and as well as with European countries to make a global network of researchers, of professors on doing a targeted or a thematic research. Of course, including AI. With Singapore also, we work on AI. And also, joint research, we co-fund research with partners globally. And what is most important, I think, the student exchange. Currently, as I said, 2,000 students we send abroad for 1 semester, in addition to scholarships that we provide for bachelor, masters, and PhDs. But the short-term exchange, I think, is very fruitful because exposing students to global arena in a certain niche technological development in developed countries. Yes, indeed. So we do exchange, including also sabbatical for professors.
Great. Thank you, Pak Nizam. That's very helpful. Since we have you here, I thought I would just say that the Singapore Management University is starting a new summer program on digital intelligence for not just Singapore students, but also international students. We are starting it in summer of 2024. That will include subjects like AI, blockchain, big data, data analytics, and so on. So we hope students in Indonesia will take advantage of that and try it out. It's not a long-term program. It's about 3 to 4 weeks, and it will quickly expose students to the key areas of the digital economy.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Navin. Perhaps I might ask a very short comment from Mr. Shoaib Khagda of the Singapore Management University, just to comment on that initiative or other response briefly to what we've heard. Thank you. There's your mic.
Thank you very much, Ian, and Dr. Nizam, a very good morning to you. I'd just like to also brief everyone that the Singapore Management Universities, we've set up a overseas center here in Indonesia since December 2022, and we have actually started to engage with a lot of universities, including UI and OGM, and we look forward to really, I think, have this exchange of students, which I think is very critical. We are looking to bring Singapore students here for internships, but at the same time, we also want to bring Indonesian students to Singapore, not just to SMU, but to the wider Singapore ecosystem, which I think there will be a lot of beneficial benefits, mutual benefits on both ends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shoaib. With that, Dr. Nizam, with your permission, and I know your time is limited, perhaps we'll allow Dr. Navin now to present his slides. Please stay for as long as you can, in case you're able to engage further. But may I invite Dr. Navin to make your presentation. We'll have Dr. Nizam for as long as we possibly can. Thank you again for being with us, Dr. Nizam, Professor Nizam. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Yes, this is day 2 of this amazing forum. I was listening to the speakers yesterday, both from government, former government, private sector, even the representatives of the presidential candidates, and so on. And I think the common area where everyone agreed across the board was the importance of people, humans, human capital, and the need to equip them, to upskill them, and to make them future ready for the digital economy. I think most of the speakers agree that that's very important. If you're going to accelerate the digital economy, we need to go back to the basics and equip the students as well as lifelong learners in the skills that they would need to participate in the economy and also innovate in the economy. So I thought I'd speak a little bit about the role of higher education in empowering students as well as lifelong learners for digital innovation in the future. A little bit about why we need future readiness for the digital economy. This has been covered by a lot of speakers. There are certainly economic benefits to do so. Digital integration is critical for ASEAN businesses to become regional and global players, potentially delivering 1 trillion rise in GDP by 2025. AI could contribute up to 15.7 trillion to the global economy in 2030. Also, the pandemic has escalated the adoption of new technology and massive restructuring of supply chains in Asia. And so countries need to adapt to that. Besides the economic growth aspect of it, the digital economy will also help in other areas. There'll be 20% cut in carbon emissions that can come from digital technologies in support of broader industry transitions. In addition, smart cities in Southeast Asia could vastly improve the quality of life, reducing the cost of living by 16 billion annually. So certainly there's economic benefits, but also social benefits to the digital economy. However, 41% of ASEAN workers acutely lack digital skills that future jobs demand. In Indonesia, digital transformation will require 9 million more digital skilled workers by 2030, equivalent to 600,000 workers per year. If you look at the picture on the right side of the screen, it shows the regions that will gain most from AI. And the regions currently expected to gain most is North America and China. Developing countries will also gain, but they will not gain as much because the take-up is not expected to be a lot. And this is because of the lack of digital skills and capacities. So I think universities, higher education, has a very important role to play in the skills gap so that developing countries and countries in Asia can also take advantage of the coming changes. I'm going to talk about 4 key areas in which higher education can potentially help accelerate the digital economy. The first is, in order to do so, the higher education institution needs to have digital transformation as one of its priorities. At SMU in Singapore, as part of our Vision 2025, we've explicitly stated that digital transformation is a priority, together with sustainable living as well as growth in Asia. So a university, if it's going to support digital transformation, must make it a priority for the university in the first place. It needs to develop a strategy for digital transformation. It needs to invest in technology infrastructure to support digital education. If it does so, it can be a pioneer and exemplar for digital transformation for the wider community. It can be an example for the rest of the community, including the private sector, to drive digital transformation. And of course, it is important to share the digital transformation experience with other universities and institutions so that others can also benefit from the journey undertaken by a university. The picture on the right shows SMU's journey, how it internally drove digital transformation so that the institution, while transforming and enhancing its digital infrastructure, both the hard and the soft, was also able to, in doing so, was able to put in place capabilities to support my next point, which is transformative education. First thing universities need to do, clearly, obviously, is to adapt the curriculum by incorporating tech-related courses, many of these courses that Pak Nizam highlighted in his presentation. So it's not just incorporating digital courses in the computer science department or so on. Here I'm talking about incorporating tech-related courses across the board in every department, in every subject area, so that whatever a student is studying in university, they'll have basic digital skills and even advanced digital skills as part of a core curriculum or common curriculum. The next point is mapping the skills obtained from academic courses. I think Sachin mentioned yesterday that it's not just about academic courses, but also about the skills. But academic courses can deliver skills as well, but it's not obvious what those skills are all the time. So what SMU is doing is kind of mapping the skills that each of the academic courses provide, and highlighting those skills to employers so that they are aware of what the students bring to the table. The third point is very important, which is bridging the industry education gap. Education sometimes does its own thing, and the industry it needs something different. It's important to communicate with industry, and a great way of doing that is to ensure that there is space in the curriculum for project-based learning, experiential learning, working together with industry to come up with a problem that students can learn about and try to solve in the classroom with industry mentors. In SME, we call it SMUX courses. These are in addition to normal courses, but they are project-based learning. There's a faculty member, but there's also an industry connected mentor who helps the students with their projects and so on. The fourth point is to enhance the portfolio of cross-disciplinary programs. This might seem a little counterintuitive because we're talking about digital skills and digital expertise. Why would you need cross-disciplinary if that's the case? Because I think what is happening in the digital industry is moving beyond just service to experience. The future of the digital economy is going to be about customer experience, how they experience the technology, and in order to deliver excellent experience, you need to be not just proficient in the technical aspects, but also the wider community, the customer needs, and what is the best possible experience you can deliver to the customers and so on. So we are also, while we emphasize digital skills, we are also emphasizing other areas, important areas, creative areas. And SMU recently set up a College of Integrative Studies to encourage interdisciplinary education, to ensure that our students are broad-based and skilled in many, many different areas, and they bring a variety, critical thinking, and so on to the employers. Another important aspect is enhancing distinctive pedagogies and learning experiences. I think Prof. Nizam mentioned about online classes, flipped classrooms, and other MOOCs and so on that can be that can enhance the current teaching methods. We are also emphasizing the deepening of the research education nexus, so that what is taught in the classroom is not just something from a textbook from 5-10 years ago, but up-to-date research is being translated into the teaching in the classroom. So whatever research faculty are doing, they are communicating the outcomes of that research in the teaching. Finally, developing students' meta competencies. In the past, this was known as soft skills, but we call it meta competencies now, which is skills acquired outside of the classroom. Universities are not just classroom experience. Students are doing a lot of things outside of the classroom, clubs, societies, community service, many, many areas in which some of them are doing leadership level activities. And this needs to be communicated to employers and so on. So what we are doing is coming up with a co-curricular transcript in addition to the academic transcript, which is not just a list of things students are doing outside of the classroom, but an assessed competency. So when students list what they have been doing, someone in the university will go through these things, assess them, and show that these students have done a lot of things outside of the classroom, which will be very, very important for the workplace as well. Global exposure, very important. Just now I mentioned that to Prof. Nizam just now. Not all the expertise and resources are going to reside in Indonesia, and it's important for Indonesian students to be exposed to other countries. Singapore, Pak Gita mentioned Singapore is always eating our lunch. So why not go to Singapore and eat some lunch there too? So yes, so exchange is very important. SMUs are hosting Indonesian students as part of the ISMA program. We hope to host more Indonesian students. Another aspect, lifelong learning and career transition. It's important to keep in touch with the latest. And it's also important that some people who are going to lose jobs because of the digital economy need to reskill and need to transition into a new career. And universities have a role to play in that as well. In SMU, we have executive education for higher level training. We also have the SMU Academy. And a new development is what we call the Industry Practice Masters, which is a stackable masters. You can take short programs and you can stack those short programs and count them together as a master's. And this is very helpful for people who are already working, who want to upskill or reskill. And I believe this is in the digital space as well. Another thing universities can do is engage and inspire pre-university students. I'm talking about high school students. If we can provide an experience for high school students to come and see what is happening in the university in the digital space, they may be inclined to come to your university and take up those courses. And that's very important, and I think universities should engage school students as far as possible. SMU is starting a new summer program for international high school students in 2024 as well. As I mentioned to Pak Nizam, we are also introducing a new summer program on digital intelligence for students. We see a global demand for these skills, and we want to be able to support that demand. And there's a list of courses on the right, which we will provide in 2024. The third point I want to mention is cutting-edge research. It is important universities are able to support research because that is usually part of a university's mandate. In addition to teaching, there is research. And it's important to support both applied as well as academic research on digital transformation. An example is on the right of your screen where Professor Pradeep has done research on leveraging AI to boost resource management. There are more examples of such research on the SMU website. Universities should also encourage research partnerships with the private and public sectors. It's not just doing research for research's sake, but if you can engage with the private sector as well as the government to see what is the priority, what needs to be researched further, then the universities can directly contribute to the acceleration of the digital economy. Encourage research collaboration with national or overseas universities. Encourage student research as well. Students can do research with faculty guidance. And provide provision of expertise to private and public sectors in digital transformation. And this is also very important. Pak Nizam mentioned that knowledge transfer and commercialization of research. And finally, translation of research for better industry and public awareness. A lot of time, academic research is very technical, and they use a lot of technical language in publications for peer-reviewed publication. This is not easily understood by the public and industry. And if universities can have professional communicators, those who are skilled in social media and so on, who can translate the research into something that is much more easily understood by the wider society. It will also help to promote the kind of cutting-edge research. Okay, my final point is the importance of universities to be highly engaged to the city and the region and beyond. So universities need to engage with industry, engage with the entrepreneurial ecosystem at these levels, city, regional, international levels, because they need to not just provide education and do research, but they can be a hub for academic, industry, and public sector exchange of ideas and collaboration on the digital transformation. They can also foster innovation and be an incubator for big ideas and startups. In SMU, we have a dedicated office that looks after innovation, both from students as well as faculty, and an office that is an incubator for big ideas and startups, helping them to start up new companies and so on, and several successful companies that have been started by students that have won awards and so on. Targeted internship and mentorship programs for students in the digital sector. Universities can work with industry to have very specialized targeted internship and mentorship programs. Also, another resource that universities can leverage on is alumni. There are a lot of alumni who are already in the digital sector as well as other sectors that are key. And universities can play the role of bringing students and alumni together so that they are much more in tune to what's happening in the industry and can be much more future ready. I just wanted to say that SMU has very recently started an industry engagement office for one-stop access to the university. A lot of resources in the university, but it's all over the place, and sometimes the private sector as well as the government has trouble accessing the expertise. A one-stop industry engagement office will help to kind of connect everybody. Finally, as Pak Shoaib mentioned, SMU has established overseas centers. The first one was in Jakarta. I had the pleasure of visiting the office for the first time yesterday evening. We've also established offices in Ho Chi Minh City and Bangkok. The idea is to be gateways to Asia for both the wider Southeast Asia to engage with SMU, also for SMU to engage with wider Southeast Asia, both on teaching, research, and partnerships and collaboration. I will stop there. I have a whole host of links to useful information in SMU, so if the slides are being distributed to everyone, please feel free to click on the links for access. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Navin Rajagobal. Thank you very much. We've had two excellent keynote speeches already, one from Professor Nizam focusing on Indonesia's education system and the culture for that, and how that is contributing in a very complex manner towards the acceleration of Indonesia's digital transformation. And I think, Dr. Navin, with yours, you've really moved the goalposts forward even further by bringing us into the world of integration and the connection between tertiary industry, between tertiary education and industry and the entrepreneur ecosystem that you mentioned. You talked about a strategy for digital education. It's not only digital education. You're finding, I understand from your slides, that education is being transformed in the process by the tools and advantages that the digital transformation brings. So it's a road that goes both ways. Also, you stress the importance of research in this, and I think Professor Nizam would agree with you. And finally, again, on those very strong connections. So with those two keynote speeches, I'd like to proceed to a broader discussion around the room this morning. We have three short addresses from our trigger speakers. We'll go to a break after that, and then we'll engage in a discussion for the entire room, and we'll be joined by Professor Dr. Ilham Habibi through a specially recorded segment. Ilham Habibi was unable to be with us this morning. He'll be here this afternoon. He's actually on a flight now from the Philippines. Last night, he was awarded a Peace Prize, the GUSI, the GUSI Peace Prize. So he's unable to be with us this morning, but he'll be with us this afternoon. Now, the first of our three trigger speakers, I'm very pleased to invite James Elwes, the COO of HSBC Indonesia. James has been with HSBC since 2007. I'm not going to read out your entire bio, James, but James has had 15 different roles within HSBC that I can count in 6 different countries and regions since 2007, most notably Western Wales in the UK, I know, most proudly for you there. And he now leads technology, operations, corporate and supplied services across HSBC Indonesia, and is leading a team of some 400 colleagues in doing so and in driving transformation across the bank. James, when we were preparing for this session, I invited him to comment on how the bank is moving forward in this transformation and to give us his insights into where he sees Indonesia's digital transformation, perhaps reflect on digital inclusion through financial services, and anything else that may help us here, James, before we move to our other two speakers. James, thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for that introduction. You're right, Western Wales was up there in the highlight. So look, it's a real privilege to be here and to speak. It's a format that I'm not that familiar with. Trigger speaker can mean something different in other circumstances. So hopefully I trigger in the right way, not the wrong way. I thought I would talk a little bit about really two main areas from a perspective of accelerating the digital economy and from the perspective of the financial industry. And that's one, the financial industry as a user of digital tools and the ability that will have to stimulate growth in the digital economy elsewhere. And the second thing would be the financial industry as an enabler for the new economy and what it can do to grow. But starting with the financial industry as a user of tools. So HSBC in Indonesia is in a way not the best example to talk about this. In one way, because we're very specific to a certain segment of customers. We're not a mass market bank. We're not the same scale as BCA or any of the big four banks. And we're very focused on international businesses and individual clients who have international requirements. But even with that segment population, the amount that we are investing in digital tools and in improved functionality is huge in every market in Indonesia. That's both for the wholesale segment, looking at how you can facilitate trade finance, payments and cash management, how you can support far greater flows of financing between different markets, but also in the individual world with mobile technology, with eKYC, and a lot of this is to catch up, frankly, right? Because the pace of investment in Indonesia more widely has been phenomenal. And I think, Professor Nizam said it, really articulated very well, the power and the opportunity for digital acceleration in Indonesia. And the thing that always hits me in working in the financial industry is that I read in the Asian Bank, I think it was last year, that 51% of Indonesia's population is unbanked and a further 26% is underbanked. And so you hold that number in your mind and hold a second number in your mind, which is I think there's 1.3 mobile phones for every individual in Indonesia, right? And obviously it's an average number. Some people have like 5 or 6 and some people don't have any. But the contrast between that two shows how big an opportunity there is. And if you can bring that many people into the financial industry, the ability to unlock spending power, innovation, enterprise, and to fundamentally transform people's lives is incredibly exciting. And so I think that will be a huge opportunity for Indonesia and can be achieved through relatively basic and well-tested tools. So I think the QR code, the QRIS payment opportunity there, that's a very simple, very well-established, very well-regulated tool, but with an ability to reach vast numbers of people in a very cost-effective manner. A second opportunity would be eKYC, which can allow you to open accounts and service customers without having to have a physical presence. So I think the opportunity is huge, and therefore, how do you reach that opportunity? I think there are so many things you could talk about there. We talked about education, and it's about people. I couldn't agree more. But I think one of the things that will be most interesting and most fascinating over the next 3-4 years is seeing how the balance is struck between trying to achieve this acceleration and regulating it effectively. And I think on all of these topics, it's an incredibly difficult balance to strike correctly, and one that I think industry and businesses can play a very active role in supporting. And so if you think about, there's a huge desire for increased functionality and capability, but that desire has to be balanced against, the risks of cybersecurity. We all want to be able to do biometrics, but what is going to be the impact on biometrics from, deep fake video technology, for example? And how does a regulator protect against that while still allowing this really important access? And that's true of all the sort of functionality and capabilities you want. They're usually balanced against, you know, the cybersecurity risk. You can look at another example, data privacy. You know, it's going to be a very important topic, and it's critical that it gets right and it's regulated well, but that's set against the ability to commercialize data and to use it to drive business growth. I think another example is time. You know, it's important that regulators have time to be able to put the right degree of scrutiny, but how do you balance against that, against time to market and the speed at which these things are changing? Or generative AI, we talked about how transformational this can be, but as Professor Nizam said, and on the trade-off, you know, we might get the Terminator here in a few years' time, right? So finding this balance, I think, is going to be really interesting. And I think there's an important role to play for forums like this, for industry, for businesses, and for associations to help find that balance. The second thing, because I don't know, have I already talked too much? No, I'm not sure. Usually I do, so that's why I was checking. The second thing that I think is interesting is the role for the financial industry as a whole in helping to facilitate the new economy. And I think what's really interesting here is, if you look back 30 years ago, you know, the big customers for all banks would have been your oil and gas, or your large financial, your large professional services, perhaps, or your large manufacturing, or large trading companies. But you know, the economic landscape is changing very fast, and you've got, you know, obviously behemoths like Goto, but all the way through the new economy and the supply chain is changing rapidly. And I think banks, financial industry, and all the way down to sort of individual investors need to be a part of that. And we need to think about, you know, what is it that is a requirement for those companies? You know, what are their financing requirements? What are their cash management requirements? And how can you, as a financial institution, help them to grow, as you would want to help any of your customers? But then I suppose also, how can regulation help support, especially at the sort of more startup end, to encourage individual investment into this industry and to encourage risk-taking in an appropriate way, and to help unlock further growth opportunities? So I think, you know, what's very interesting sitting in the financial industry is you sit on both of those areas. You know, you've got to use technology to help bring financial tools and literacy and opportunities to as many people as possible. And on the other side, you have the opportunity to try and support customers who are more and more part of the new economy.
James, thank you very much. You've done exactly what we wanted to achieve here in highlighting HSBC as an example among industries, as a user of tools and technology, but also in terms of the banking space and inclusion, both financial and digital, the role of the bank and the industry at large in financing the new economy, which is being driven through by this digital transformation. You talked about some of the leading giants in the digital transformation, such as GoTo. Very happy to have Martin Topolowski with us here as our next trigger speaker in that regard.
I should have mentioned that as the other.
That's okay. I'm going to read your bio first, Martin. You've got time to finish that. So Martin Topolowski is the founder and investor of Bhumivata Technology. Martin's lived in Asia for more than 25 years, mainly in Tokyo and Hong Kong, where he's held various positions in financial markets, private banking, family offices, and the hedge fund space. He set up his own venture capital business in Singapore in late 2016. You can hear all about his opinions on venture capital on his LinkedIn account. Do see after. Martin moved to Indonesia in 2018 to focus on his current investment, Bhumivata Technology. He'll tell us a little bit about that. And Martin, I hope really in your role as trigger speaker that you'll trigger a conversation around the emerging technology that you're bringing with Bhumivata and what that's going to do, perhaps not so much to disrupt the space, though it will be a disruptor, but also to change and help in the acceleration of the digital space in Indonesia. Martin Topolowski.
Right, so first of all, we're a lot smaller than HSBC, so I'll explain briefly what we do for those who don't know. We provide location analytics software for the government and also for private sector businesses so they can make better business decisions. So we have been using machine learning to do predictions for companies like McDonald's, XXI Cinema, Kraft Heinz, so they can make savings on their business development costs. They can make savings on the logistics costs. This is a proven concept elsewhere, but still quite new to Indonesia. I think we're by far the biggest in this space with around 150 employees. But it's interesting what some of the guys say. I think education is going to be key. There is still, from our perspective, there is still, I believe, there's a lot of reliance still in Indonesia on outdated business processes. And there is, I think everywhere there's concern about how technology may affect jobs. But I think maybe here it's more significant, especially in the BUMN sector, where people, I think, there's so many people in jobs there, which may be affected by our software and by AI, where people need to upskill and start doing different things, not see this as a threat, but as Dr. Navin mentioned, upskilling the people who are already maybe older. Because often I have to have meetings with people who've been working in BUMN for the last 30 years, and they really don't really have much interest in what I have to say, because they basically see this as, yeah, but we've done without this until now. What benefit is this to me? Is this going to affect, am I going to get a promotion if I introduce this? Or am I going to get people knocking on my door saying, how can I not make the money I used to make, effectively? So there is a challenge in introducing deep technology to Indonesia. And I think also Indonesian people need to be more confident of their own abilities when it's making technology. Now, when we went to introduce our technology to Telkomsel Sigma, they were like, oh, we don't deal with Indonesian-made technology. We only deal with the big foreign firms when they're introducing. Now, we now have contracts with some of the system integrators here. But it was very complicated at first. They rather stick to what they know. So how can Indonesia develop making their own software? You look at India and China, they used to import everything from the United States. Now we have Infosys, we have multiple Chinese companies, Tata, all these multinational companies. And as Indonesia becomes bigger globally, they're going to have to also adopt. So I think the opportunity here is absolutely huge. We know the size of the population. But even if we look at 2045 and the economy becoming the 4th biggest in the world, for that wealth to be spread out more and to lift people up in society, I think technology is the best way to do that. So the main thing here is getting the main stakeholders to buy in, the governments, the various organizations. We have many events like this, which we get to talk to people. We had an event recently with Dr. Anis, and there's various other events where we get to point out what we're trying to do. But I still think, the biggest challenge here is the still reliance on outdated business processes. But I think the opportunity is that for what we can do, we can drive the revenue of businesses. So people should see this as an opportunity, because if you have all the data to hand, and that data is an understandable way, so we have live telco data, we have data for, we collect our own point of interest data, so Toko Kelontong, we collect data from all the national statistics, Dukcapil, and we put this all in one piece of software, which will then make predictions based on that using AI. Effectively, the companies using that type of thing can increase their revenue significantly and can create new jobs. So I think changing the whole outlook to ensure that people don't see technology as a threat, but see technology as a massive opportunity. And at the end of the day, in the UK in the old days, everyone, even when I first started work, we had a typist, right? Now, I think I heard, I think it might have been Sachin who said this at an early event. We don't have typists anymore, but we don't have mass unemployment. We have people who have upskilled and now do different things. And I think the younger generation is certainly buying into that. We have a lot of relationships with UGM and ITB and things, but yet getting the buy-in from the decision makers, particularly in the government sector, I think is the biggest challenge. Private sector, It's a lot easier, obviously, because they can look at the black and white. How much revenue am I going to increase by using AI to make predictions instead of having people going around counting people? Because still the system being used here for making business decisions by a lot of the big corporates is very analog still. People going around with a pen and paper, making notes, what they think of this. So there's a lot of change that can be made very simply. I was yesterday meeting with the head of the Indonesian Real Estate Association. They have, I think, 6,000 developers. And still a lot of it's analog. Still a lot of, he's trying to introduce new software. He's a young guy. Obviously, he's got connections, family connections, but he's a young guy trying to introduce something completely new, technology, trying to introduce our software to this group. And he gets pushback. He gets like, well, you know, this is not how we do things. So I think that's the biggest challenge. The upskilling is very important, but the opportunity for increasing revenues of individual companies is very, very high by just using better technology. I mean, just being able to make predictions based on data rather than just effectively using feng shui or something, which has been used quite a lot in Indonesia in the past to make business decisions. I talk to senior guys here and they tell me that's what they do. So, but if you look at history and even the big corporates, they make a lot of mistakes because the way they have done it in the past. They've been very driven by agents maybe when they're making decisions of where to put new branches, the banks even, you know, BCA, and they've been agent driven, but to be driven by their own data and being able to make decisions, I think is going to obviously increase their revenue and increase their opportunities, especially in the second and third cities where people just don't have the information. So yeah, I think that's basically my point, that it's a huge opportunity, can increase revenue across the board for most corporates and the government. Simply, BUMN could increase its revenue dramatically, plus they can monetize a lot of the data they have. So there's a great, like what we've done with BPN. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but still stakeholders need to buy in to this because there is some pushback still, to be honest.
Martin Tobolowski, thank you very much for the perspective from Bhumi Vata. I think you've highlighted now in following on from James at HSBC how important that upskilling is for your industry and others in your customer base and more broadly across all industry. You've also highlighted one of the key problems in that you meet the challenge of outdated business processes and protocols in your engagement with business. They're resistant to that change, even though that change is all around us and is already in all of our smartphones and in every decision we make as a consumer on a daily basis. It's all about that education and having people understand that this is not a threat, it's an opportunity, and it's here, and it's already part of our lives. So thanks for giving us that perspective. Hoping to have your further perspectives from around the room where we engage in a discussion. I'd like to go to our third trigger speaker. I'm very happy to have with us from Avery Dennison, Indonesia, Mr. Thompson Wangsa Wijaya. Thompson's had more than 20 years' experience in FMCG packaging. And Avery Dennison, and this is one of the very interesting aspects of the company, is a leader in RFID. And I'd like you perhaps to give us a little brief on what that means to the Internet of Things and the digital transformation as we move forward. Digital transformation and today's event, it's all about introducing these innovative technologies and understanding how they will contribute to the acceleration of the transformation, whether it's AI, blockchain, or the Internet of Things. And I sense a role for Avery Dennison in this space. You're a market leader there. So perhaps, Thompson, before we move to a break and our discussion and the video presentation from Dr. Ilham Habibi, Thompson Wangsa Wijaya. Thank you, Thompson.
Thank you, Ian. Our company, Avery Dennison, actually is a pioneer founder of the label business for packaging. So it's founded 1935. So we are coming from the core business, packaging business. Then in 25 years ago, we are starting to invest in the RFID because our company see that the RFID trend will be moving and increasing in the global. And now our company has actually now become the leaders and the biggest supplying for RFID in the global. From Indonesia perspective, because 20 years ago also we are trying to expand the business for RFID as well. Quite a lot of challenges like Martin mentioning.
Thompson,
Yes.
RFID stands for those who may not know.
Yeah, RFID is a radio frequency identification. So it's labels with a chip, and the chip can contain of a memory. So now we see only the barcode. So barcode is, everything is same. One barcode can use for every same barcode numbers. But using RFID, you have a unique numbers. Each of the chip, each of the RFID have different numbers. So we can tracing and tracking all the products. And this is a quite good things that we are doing for the RFID tracing. I think a couple years ago, our government trying to implement RFID to give the petrol distribution, but that one is not going on. But now RFID is quite significant growing. In the private sector, in the past, quite a lot of challenges coming from the capex. Investment is very high, the cost is very high. But now, since COVID situation, I think everybody is looking at the cost, how it can be more efficient, and the cost is lower. And this is something that we can see that Indonesia also is growing the RFID. Digitalization is going faster in Indonesia. And we see quite a lot of industry is also implementing the digitalization, starting from the manufacturing industry, then to the retail industry as well. And the retail industry, you can see very easy now. If we go to Uniqlo, we go to Decathlon, everybody is using RFID, because why? If we go to the garment industry, it's quite a lot of SKU there, and it's quite a lot of products. You have many sizes, you have a product item. If we do the tracing inventory, it takes quite a lot of time. You need to count, scan one by one. Using RFID, you just use a hardware to as a reader, then you scan the RFID, then you can count everything in just a second. So it's quite convenient for some industry. It's a good thing to implement in the industry actually. That one is on the retail business. On the manufacturing, actually we also working on with some of industry to do the tracing from the production line up to the streaming to the distribution and up to the final dispatch, the distribution center as well. So that will be quite a huge demand later on, replacing the barcode system. And this is what we see now. Actually, there's quite a lot of challenges as well, like Martin mentioned. When we go to the industry segment, a lot of people may see that, oh, this come to the investment on the technology, and then the people will be not using quite a lot of people anymore. That is also one of the challenges. I think Dr. Navin already mentioning that we can have something to upgrade ourselves as well. If we cannot sustain in this level of business, maybe we can upgrade ourselves to be more advanced to cope the market trend at this moment. Yeah.
Thompson, Wangson Wijaya, Avery Dennison, thank you very much. It just struck me that we've had feng shui for 2,000 years, and then we get barcodes, and now you want to change barcodes for RFID? Well, I guess that's the acceleration. We will have a conversation about this. I would like to invite everyone, we will take a break now for 15 minutes. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you've got your calories and carbohydrates and everything else sorted out. And if you brought it into the room, all the better. So in this session, this will be our open discussion session. Just to reiterate what we've done so far, we've had excellent keynote speeches from Professor Nizam and Dr. Navin. We've also had our 3 trigger speeches, James Elvis, HSBC, Martin Topolowski, Bhumi Bhatta, Thompson Wang Sawijaya from Avery Dennison. And the last keynote that we will have is from His Excellency Dr. Engineer Ilham A. Habibi, Chief Executive of the National ICT Council, or One-Teknas, Republic of Indonesia. Ilham Habibi currently serves as the chairman of the Indonesian ICT Council, also serves on the board of supervisors at the Habibi Center, and of course here we are at the wonderful Habibi and Ainun Library. The center is a Jakarta-based think tank focusing on democracy and human rights, founded by his father, the late President Bahruddin Yusuf Habibi. Ilham is also the chairman of PT Iltabi Rakatama, a private investment company, which he founded in 1991. It's invested into various fields such as oil and gas, energy, mining, manufacturing, and aerospace. Aerospace, as you'd expect. I think there's something genetic there. Despite all the talk about digital, you can't get away from that. ICT, property, financial services, and many, many more. He also currently heads One-Teknas, the National ICT Council of Indonesia, a government advisory body which has cross-sectoral participation, and is one of the earliest members of the digital dialogue that we have in partnership between Castle Asia and the Indonesia Economic Forum. So, as I mentioned before, Dr. Ilham was unable to be with us in person. He'll be here this afternoon. So we have a pre-recorded session where we brought this agenda and discussion to him, and he was gracious enough to afford us some of his time. And if we can, I think we have that ready if the technology will support us. Thank you, Sharon. Welcome to the 10th annual session of the Indonesia Economic Forum. Today's session on accelerating the digital economy, and we're very pleased to have with us Dr. Engineer Ilham Habibi, Chief Executive of the National ICT Council, One-Teknas of the Republic of Indonesia. Today's session is designed to bring together innovators, policymakers and influencers, as well as entrepreneurs, on a platform that will help to facilitate and support Indonesia's digital transformation as we move towards advancing technologies that will help to shape the future of the country, business, commerce, on the basis of digital inclusion for the entire population. Dr. Ilham, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. We have a number of points we'd like to explore with you with regard to accelerating the digital economy and exactly what that will mean for that nexus of business and commerce as it faces the policy environment in Indonesia and where that meets the global environment for the regulation of the digital economy more broadly. So perhaps if we could start off by exploring where you see opportunities for collaboration between the government and the private sector in the digital economy, and if you have any case studies where this is already starting to bear fruit, for example, in Indonesia.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I think that it's probably better to focus first on what fields and what sector within the digital economy things should be happening or are already happening. So we are seeing that in the last years, in areas such as fintech, for instance, Indonesia is actually one of the most advanced countries you can find in the region, even globally, when it comes to innovation in that particular sector. And that is because of the policy or the attitude of the regulator and also the central bank in that regard. whenever there is something new coming up, it is given some space first in what we call the sandbox. Yeah? So there's room to experiment, but the risk is minimized by basically monitoring it closely. So in that time frame, whenever you have that sandbox available, then the framework for policy and regulation is being developed, and once it's ready, then it's fully launched. There's no guarantee that that is already sufficient. I mean, we've seen now big challenges in Indonesia, where particularly online lending, there's a lot of victims here, and that is, but it's not because of rules and regulation, but mainly because of the inability to prevent illegal lenders to come into the market. So the big challenge here is basically to improve digital and also financial literacy for the users. It's very difficult to prevent that kind of a phenomenon happening in any market. It's so easy to enter the market and basically make your money here and then disappear again, or you remain here as an illegal lender. But I think the key here is not to sort of firewall the whole of Indonesia, and so nobody illegal can come in, but it is to educate the population what to do and what not to do. Yeah. So that is a good example how the collaboration between the government as the regulator and the government as also the giving the direction where they should go in a particularly active sector in Indonesia has been happening, is still happening, because fintech is certainly is there since a few years, but there's always new things happening in every sector in there. And that is because the digital technology itself or the, is developing fast when it comes to disruptive innovation. I think in the last days we have seen the turbulence in artificial intelligence. Yes. With the, I mean, it was just very surprising, to say the least, what has been happening in some companies in the US just over the weekend, and it shows the hope and also the fear that people have vis-a-vis that particular breakthrough technology. And we are just at the beginning. And you can imagine, and this is so digital, I mean, it needs a lot of data, yes. It needs high computing power, it needs a fully developed cloud system in order to gather the data, it needs so many things. Yeah? So that is the prime example of what to expect in the future, and also where this might be going in terms of acceleration. I mean, we're talking about acceleration. Yes. So right now, the vision of AI for any technology, including any digital technology, is it will be helping for us to be more productive, more efficient, more effective to do our work. So basically, think of it as an assistant, as a co-pilot. Of course, if you develop that picture further, then people think that at some point in time we don't have to think anymore and everything is taken over by AI. I think that is exactly the fear that many people have about that, but it depends on us, how we regulate this, how we do this. Indonesia, your question was about Indonesia, I think Indonesia, first of all, is a very prospective case here because we have the big numbers. We have 280 million people. If you would appropriately gather the data of all Indonesians, from very simple matters until very complicated matters, it would be the cornerstone of basically using the data to develop new businesses, new companies and industries. Yeah. But for that, there needs to be a strong data policy, and also the government needs to be more open about data that are not conflictuous in nature. There's, of course, always a balance to be met between the privacy of the data and the universal use of the data. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned some of those emerging technologies. Right. Fintech is one example, AI is another, and you also mentioned the very large size of Indonesia's population.
Right, yeah.
One of the clear challenges then is the development of that digital literacy and the skills development that's required for Indonesia to take up the advantages of these technologies. And perhaps a final question. We talked a little earlier about how some of the digital transformation is political. Some of the players within it may be political.
Okay.
We're also facing a geopolitical world these
Right,
days, where
right.
we have providers with technology and advances from China on one hand,
Yeah.
and also from the West. How does Indonesia balance the availability of these technologies that we're seeing being offered as part of the Belt and Road from China and the major platforms we're seeing from the West? Sitting in the middle here in Southeast Asia, does Indonesia have a place in that balance?
Okay. I think from a political perspective, Indonesia needs to have neither in the camp of the US nor in the camp of China. We are basically friendly to both. We are partnering with both. When it comes to digital matters, these two countries have different attitudes toward digital matters. I would say that the US is like a large open system. Yeah? Because they want to be open, because they want to basically also export the technology. They cannot prevent people to come into their country with digital matters, except one country, which is China. Because there's this geopolitical tension between the two countries. And China as a country is the opposite when it comes to digital matters. I mean, if you go to China, then yes, they have everything available, but it's all Chinese. There's certain things you can't use in China because it's forbidden. Yeah? And the internet works perfectly in China, but there are certain restrictions. Yeah? There are certain things you can't do. And that has to do with the nature of the political system in both countries, and they're just different. Yeah? What about us in Indonesia? Well, as a country, we resemble more US, I think, because we're open. Yeah. But as an economy, our relations are much stronger with China. China is the second largest investor in Indonesia, and maybe in the future it's going to be the largest. Yeah? So the interdependency between those two economies, I think, will be growing, and it's something we cannot prevent because we are almost neighbors. Yeah? I mean, these links in business in Asia, I mean, we talk about East Asia, Southeast Asia, have been there for centuries. Belt and Road that connects China, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, and part of Europe. Right?
Even Latin America.
Latin America, yeah. Well, that's an extension of the original Belt and Road. I mean, I'm talking about the old Silk Road, which is the initiator for the idea of Belt and Road. But of course, that in the 21st century, that concept can be expanded globally. So Africa would be also another part of the globe that originally was not part, I think, by and large, of the Silk Road, right? So yeah, I think we have to differentiate between political systems that are maybe there are stronger links. I shouldn't say stronger, but stronger resemblance between two countries here, Indonesia and US. And when it comes to economic matters, I think China is more impactful than Indonesia.
Well, Dr. Ilham Habibi, thank you very much for this contribution to accelerating the digital economy, part of the 10th session of the Indonesia Economic Forum. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Thanks. Terima kasih.
Well, thanks everyone for watching that. That was, I'm reminded that was actually just two of the questions. I think the interview ran for about 40 minutes and there were at least 10 questions, and the whole thing's available on YouTube if you want to see that. That was the greatest hits, if you will. But there's a lot more on the YouTube interview, and all that material will be available to you if you'd like to hear more comments from Dr. Engineer Ilham Habibi. So this session is designed to be interactive, and we really like to get the input from the room here. All of you are invited here by virtue of your position and your particular role in facilitating the digital transformation, and especially in its acceleration. So whether you're in government or a multilateral organization, private sector or public, we'd value your input. I know one or two people will have to leave before we conclude, and that's fine. But I'd like to call on a couple of people, if I may. First of all, we've been speaking about education, upskilling, digital literacy, inclusion. So perhaps, if I may, I'd like to call first on Dr. Nalin Singh of the Orbit Academy. Is Nalin, where do we have? Yes, Nalin, can we ask for your response, if you were, I'm not sure if you were here for all of the session this morning, but if you could give us your response to what you've heard so far, and perhaps highlight what the Orbit Academy is doing and its role in fostering that transformation and its acceleration.
Thanks, Ian. It's terrible of you to make me speak after Dr. Ilham. Anything I say won't sound half as good. And because whenever he speaks, you get a lot of insights, and speaking after him is not a good idea. I believe that, education and the higher education side of it is the last traditional bastion waiting for disruption. We've already seen it everywhere. And the traditional people always miss the bus in various degrees. And I would preface that by saying that I don't mean higher education institutes like Harvard, SMU, etc., which attract the best talent, do research, engage with industry. That small population of self-motivated learners who go for research, etc., will remain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the larger mass, second and third tier. Traditional businesses always miss the bus. Banks missed the fintech. Bluebird missed Uber and Gojek. Walmart missed the e-commerce. When disruption happens, it happens because customers get three things, TQM. It's the new service saves them time, it is infinitely better quality, and it saves them money. I'm not batting for edutech because edutech doesn't do any of these three fully. Edutech briefly became a need during COVID rather than a want that it is. In its current form, edutech makes you spend more time after school and college, you come back and study more. Makes you spend more money after your parents have paid the fee, you pay again. The quality of the tutor is the same except that he's better groomed on screen. That's why they're all failing. But what about the universities themselves? Are they giving anything of the TQM? It's worse. If you look at all the sectors that have got disrupted, and if you look at, for us who are 40 plus, the two things that we pay disproportionately higher money for, healthcare and education. In healthcare, at least if you go in an operation theater, you see all these new gadgets, robotics, etc. In education, you see the same classroom, but you're paying 10 times more. That's the frustration. Then if we look at who is our target audience, the students, where are they? What is their mindset? Martin mentioned that they think we are dinosaurs. He also mentioned something interesting about Indonesians not having enough confidence in Indonesian talent. If you put all of it together and look at our target audience, post-school, pre-work, they are on TikTok. They are doing 1-minute videos. They are interested in dance, drama, learning in 1-minute clips. If you put a 3-minute clip, they fast forward. University systems, except the top quality ones, are doing what traditional businesses did and missed the bus, which is make baby step cosmetic changes. I will add one department here. I have 50 departments, so I made a single point of contact. Which world are you living in? Baby steps, cosmetic changes, thinking that is innovation and thinking that will make them look modern. Or do what Walmart did, get an old man's facelift, go buy Flipkart. These don't work. These don't work, and the traditional business miss it for these reasons, and the response to it is inadequate. And the response is inadequate for various reasons, right from inertia to incompetence, delusion, denial, whatever you call it. I don't know what the education system will go towards, but the traditional university system is not the answer. It is being rejected outright by our clients, which is the students. University enrollments are at an all-time low across the world. In the US, after 1980s, when it peaked, it's going down. After COVID, it has accelerated. EduTech in its current form is not the answer because it doesn't give the TQM. Something else will come up. I don't know what that is. We are trying in our own way through orbit, but I'm sure something else will come up. We also are not the complete answer. We will also evolve. Those are my thoughts, Ian. Back to you.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. I think you've really thrown down the gauntlet there in terms of universities. We have a number represented around the room, so there'll be an opportunity to respond. But I take you up on your initial point, and namely that education is one of the last industries waiting for, or perhaps ripe for, disruption, and perhaps the digital transformation and its acceleration will play a part in that. I'm going to come back to your end of the room shortly. But first of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Bayu Prawira. Perhaps, Bayu, you have a role in finance. You've written books on financial inclusion. That's been a little bit about what we've talked about here with James at HSBC and how that inclusion fits into the digital transformation. Perhaps you could give us your response to what you've heard this morning and what you're doing and what your role is in the transformation. Bayu.
Thank you, Ian. So my name is Bayu Prawirahi. Actually, my PhD is in digital transformation, and I'm helping banks, conventional banks.
And I think you're the first PhD in digital transformation, am I right?
Yeah,
for Indonesia.
as far as I know.
Thank you.
So I'm helping banks, conventional banks, turn into digital transformation. Well, if you ask, is it bank lacking in IT? No, bank is always using IT since the earliest IT available. So the question is, why banks are called into this digital transformation in Indonesia after 2020? Wasn't it before 2020, they have already implemented core banking system with IBM IS400 with all these advanced technologies. What did they do? Didn't they do digital already? They did, yeah. What they did was digitalizations. Digital transformation is different than digitalizations. Digitalizations is having digital into your business process, while digital transformation is transforming your business model, not only the process, the business process, but the business model. What is the business model that the banks has to transform? Yeah, you look at the fintech. Yeah, that's the new business model. Yeah. What's the fintechs doing? Fintechs doing of serving people, getting them into financial inclusions. That's why our statistics shows that unbankables in Indonesia, the latest data was 48%, but the financial inclusion is more than 80%. Where the difference comes from? The difference comes from the fintech. So those people considered as included in financial system, formal in financial system, when their data is already in the system. Yeah. Some of them went to bank that has been existing for decades, and some of them, the data is in the fintech companies. So that's the difference between why the financial inclusion is different than the bankables. Now, yeah, we'll see that, like Navin said, that education, the conventional education is not yet changed and it's not relevant anymore. Yeah, I believe it will be a change when the time comes. So the time, everything with the transformation, digital transformation, needs the right time. Yeah. Like we had in the media, now we already seen that the conventional media, the printed media, has all gone. I mean, those are surviving is just only a few prints and not as much as before, and it's actually the business model is already dead there. And the business model of the online news is totally different than the conventional news. And then coming the e-commerce. The e-commerce also already disrupting the traditional trading system, the shops. You see malls losing their retail shops. You said, yeah, there's still some existing. Yeah, they are fighting very hard to still exist now, but they are facing really hard times. So now the time is for the bank to have this disruption. And we see to have a disruption, we need not only change in that particular industries, but also the surroundings. I mean, the disruptions in media, disruptions in e-commerce would never be happen if you don't have, the people don't have the smartphones in their hands. You don't have good connections. You don't have the other things surrounding it to support it. Yeah. We in Jakarta, we have seen all the e-commerce that, I'm using Tokopedia, Shopee to buy things every day, and feels that's so easy and so economic, so efficient. But when I went to Kupang, for example, the NTT, and one day I wanted to buy a swimsuit because I planned to go to a cave with a pool there, but I couldn't find sellers there in the commerce. I mean, the sellers there in Java, so I need it now or tomorrow to be sent, not available there. So e-commerce has a much bigger impact in bigger city than those in the small cities. Why? Because the surroundings are more ready in the big cities rather than small cities. So what we have seen is that with everything is getting ready, disruption will come, and the conventional players cannot avoid it anymore. We are seeing now that this queuing for the disruption after the banking, after the financial industry, then the health system, the healthcare, and then the education, right? So we believe that it will come, but maybe now is not yet the come when the market is not yet disrupted. Yeah. So I would say that digital transformation is the future, a certain future for every industry. Yeah. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. Now is the time for the financial industry to have this digital transformation. And digital transformation is different than digitalization. Many companies think that digital transformation is digitalization. I've already used this, I've already used this, I've already did this. You said I have not yet transformed digital. How come? It's because the business model has not yet changed. And one of the questions that you can answer directly, whether you have changed your business model or not, is whether you have done beyond your core business. So bank that has gone through digital transformation, they will assure that we are beyond banking. Those industries are the insurances that has gone through transformation will say, we do beyond insurance. So if they are still doing the same thing in their industry, they don't do it beyond it, they are not doing digital transformation. Bluebird has implemented all the technology to catch up with the project, but the business model is still the same. So actually, they are doing digitalizations, but they are not doing digital transformation. That's why they're still not catching up with the project with the Grab. I think I'm talking too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Bayo. Those are very interesting points that you make. We moved away from disruption and perhaps any of the negatives that can be inferred from that, and that doesn't have to be a negative, to going beyond. And I think that's a very constructive contribution. Disruption is something that's natural in every industry. We've seen this happening for the last 20 years in almost every industry. But Nalin said education may be the last bastion. You've talked about the financial industry. We had James helping us with comments on that earlier. Let me go to a few more people. Perhaps if I could to Mr. Shiraj Kreplani from IO Connect. Shiraj, could you give us your perspective from the purview of IU Connect? And you're also a member of the Digital Dialogue, so thank you for that. How are you seeing this transformation? And we are making now this clear distinction, I don't think that's lost on anyone in the room, between digitalization and the actual digital transformation. Here we have you on the screen. IU Connect, Shiraj.
Thank you, Ian, and good afternoon to everyone. So I think from our side, IO Connect is an enabler. So we enable a lot of API connectivity between banks and platforms. And we serve about 200 plus platforms in Indonesia, focus only in Indonesia. And what we've seen is, I think what Bapak Pabayu said that, business model is very important because we need to understand how to measure transformation. How does it impact, right, at the end of the day? I think going back to what we see, Pa Ilham also, our president commissioner on IO Connect, he mentioned that financial services is something that's actually being the first gateway. Luckily, regulations and regulators are very, very supportive. Policies are actually bringing towards what is needed to be changed. Going back, I think when we speak about transformation, I feel there is a gap in terms of skills in Indonesia because there are no, when we speak about tech, there are people, but I don't feel like they are at the stage where they can help and understand business processes, operation transformation, how does it implement it. That's the bridge which is a gap in the market. Also, we're seeing, like, if we speak about the gap, I feel, is the skilling which is needed, which is industry needs people, but there are also so many people which are actually graduating, coming into the industry, but they don't know where is the match. I think there's a big mismatch around what is required by industry and where people need to skill themselves. We also, if you look at the formal industry, the people who are in the workforce, I think we need to keep in mind that there are 5 different generations in the workforce. So different generations need different kind of skillings. Even people at our age, people at the age of 50, 60 who are still working as well, still needs to upskill themselves. So I think, again, like, looking at all of those things, and I think AI, again, the use of, going back to some of the topics that we spoke in the morning as well, AI is not here to replace people, but it's supposed to enhance the skills and replace the mundane tasks so that people can actually spend more quality time on what is required to actually bring businesses forward. So, but Indonesia is at least aware on the whole transformation side. Their banks particularly, they are on top of things. They want to get it done. Now the question is, where do they start? What is the industry needed? Where is, like, also some of the topics which was mentioned is that how is the industry behaving? And that's where players like us, IO Connect, comes in and tells the bank also, hey, the market is moving like this, fintechs are behaving like this, you should also start to play around and maybe we can facilitate some of these APIs and bridging that's needed. Maybe that's all I can share. Back to you, Ian. Thank you.
That's a great deal that you've shared. So thank you very much for that and for the role that IO Connect is playing here. I'd like to expand this to other services who are key to the digital transformation that we may see on a daily basis. Do we have Samir with us? Samir Bhatt from Amazon? No? Okay. In that case, I'll go to my next speaker, and that's to draw things out away from Indonesia a little bit. Indonesia is the largest economy in the ASEAN group. It's been the chair of the association for this year, recently passed that across to Laos. We have with us today Mr. Ashish Kapahi of the ASEAN Economic Forum. I'd like to hear your views, we all would, Ashish, on where you see Indonesia vis-a-vis the digital transformation in the place of ASEAN and how you see that greater piece with that enormous digital economy that's growing in that group of nations. Drawing that down into Indonesia, could you give us your perspective, please, Ashish?
Thanks, Ian. I usually like to start off with stories, but I'm just thinking of an appropriate one for this particular forum. See, one of the things we've got to understand is that ASEAN as a region is very diverse culturally. And when we talk about digital transformation, we're all looking at very futuristic technologies here. One of the things, and I keep emphasizing on this again and again, is that we have to keep coming back to our own cultures and understand that how do we mix digital transformation, or how do we embed it in the current culture that we have. See, for any technology to take off and to make it successful, it has to be an inherent part of the culture. I think it was Dr. Ilham said something interesting. He said we are between two different cultures here. Did he say culture, or he said forms of governance? So we are between the US and we are between China. Now, it is very important that while we are between them, we don't lose our own cultural identities. We take the best from them, but we retain what is ours. And if digital transformation can be embedded in the systems that we have, then it's the best way to go. So you're not changing the identities of people. And I mean, I'll give an example of, we're talking about e-commerce and we're talking about disruptions. I personally believe that there are disruptions that can happen, but that can happen within the structure of the societies. You don't have to necessarily break the structures of the society. Now, in that aspect, while ASEAN is one, we have to understand that there are sensitivities within ASEAN that one has to embrace as you move forward. And keeping those in mind and moving forward is important. Now, coming back to the structure of governance, see, one of the things we have to understand is ASEAN, and in fact, this part of the world has not really embraced democracy in true Western form. If you actually look at it, because we are not modern democracies. If you look at us here, we are cultural democracies. The form of democracy or governance we've had it for thousands of years. And that's important. So one small point that I want to make about digital transformation, and I think everybody's an expert here and everybody said everything, is that while we transform, let's not forget our cultural identity. And from an ASEAN perspective, it's not any one country that is going to lead the digital transformation. It's a mixed bag, and everybody will have a different set of expertise. And if we can draw down on the expertise and balance it out, then we will have a true form of digital transformation. I actually don't even want to call it digital transformation. It's transformation as economies and transformation as people, and that's, I guess, more pertinent here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Now we've gone beyond digital. In fact, we've removed the word from the phrase itself. So thank you very much for taking it a step further, not just into ASEAN, but into a new concept. So thank you very much for that, Ashish. It's very useful to have the context of ASEAN and Indonesia's place within it. Staying within industry, perhaps I could call on Alin Saxena, Sales Director at PT Tech Mahindra Indonesia. Alin, if we could have your perspective on how you might respond to the comments you've heard around the room this morning from your company's purview, and how you see your place in this transformation, let's call it that.
Thank you, Ian. So, I feel the race has just begun to reinvent, modernize, and, disrupt the data, technologies, people, processes, operations, right, in the institutions and organization. If I see, and if I recall, digital transformation was also a priority issue in the G20 presidency, right? One of the priority issues, right? So digital transformation is taking the world by storm, right? In terms of technology trends like Gen AI, blockchain, metaverse, edge computing, low code, no code, right? But what I feel is like the technology is not transforming, right? It's the technology which is transforming us, the institutions, the organizations, right? And if you see, in last 10 years, IT and technologies were like focused towards how the way people work, right? But now it's more focused towards the transformation on the businesses. How do the business become more modernized, right? What Bapa, you also mentioned, right? So also if you see, in couple of years when the digitalization started, the acceleration of digital economy kicked off, right? Before that, it was always the big which is beating small, right? But now it is the fast who is beating slow, right? So on this perspective, it becomes a very critical scenario where everyone wants to be on the same curve of the transformation. But the thing is how you keep up with that curve in terms of understanding your own process, your operations, and on which point of view the curve has to be matched with the internal requirements, right? So that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan, for helping us with how this is impacting your business and taking that forward. Perhaps let's pull back from business and industry and look at this from a government perspective. In fact, the US government, USAID, we're pleased to have Jeff Cohen with us here today. Jeff, you're overseeing at least 3 projects, I understand, that are in the space of the transformation using digital technologies. Could you give us your perspective on Indonesia's transformation and then perhaps your broader comments on how you see this more widely? Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments and thoughtful participation today. One of the things that struck me from the very beginning, from the participation from the Ministry of Education and then through all the discussions, especially Dr. Navin today, is that there are great ideas, but what we're missing is how do we get to scale? If Indonesia, and I've heard this number many different times, one of our partners, AWS, that's working on upskilling university students in cloud computing, the 600,000 new employees, IT skilled employees every year, well, if the government is only tracking 200,000, and that's a recent number, then there's this gap that gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And this is a missed opportunity for Indonesia's digital transformation and future economic growth. So what is being done to address the scale issue? And while individual universities and companies can engage with ITB or IPB or BINUS or the small subset of institutions that are a little bit more forward-leaning and understand how to engage with universities to build programs that match industry, the upskilling needed, and the students, we're still only getting a small scale for what's actually needed in Indonesia to actually make the next moves into a digital transformation space. And so, Nalin mentioned those second and third tier institutions. Why are companies not working at scale with the Muhammadiyah system or the NU systems? These are systems that touch larger numbers of university students all across the country and don't require students to travel to Bandung or Bogor or Jakarta. And I think that if Indonesia is going to make that leap, you have to find those nexi. From Detroit, my English is always challenged. But what about in Pontianak, right? What about in Makassar? What about in Ambon? And another part of this, is, and I think AWS recognizes this, and all companies should, is you need to skill those local government officials, whether they're elementary school teachers or the accountant at the kabupaten or the district. Those folks need those skills. The transformation is not Jakarta-based, right? Just as you said in Kupang. Where are the folks upskilling people in Kupang so that they can start up their digital e-commerce company? And so I think that the Ministry of Higher Ed or the Ministry of Education has a purview here, but we also need to make sure that we're getting out beyond just the ivory towers in Jakarta and start working out in the field across Indonesia, whether it's Papua or Aceh or Sumatra. And USAID, our programming is a small subset. If we're going to upskill 60,000 laborers in cloud computing, well, that's not enough. And so we certainly can't do it alone. And I think, matching industry with universities, with the students is the right methodology, as Dr. Navin said. And we have a partner, ASU, which is a leader in this around the globe. But it's going to take a lot more, right? It takes every industry, healthcare, it takes education, it takes, everyone has to play a role in order to get to scale. And I think there needs to be the push from government and the pull from the private sector in order to make it happen. I think that's probably enough for me, but know that USAID and the US government is here to be a partner in these endeavors, and we hope that, I'll say one last thing. Scale also is needed in the higher education space. We talked about scholarships, and there was mention yesterday, I was in the political discussion over lunch about LPDP. Indonesia has its own resources to invest, and we found out yesterday that the government is only providing 60% of the scholarships available with the funding. Well, there it is right there. There's the funding to set up, the scale needed. LPDP is the government's endowment of $10 billion and grows every year. And utilizing those to send people around the country and around the world, it can't be 2,000. It's not going to have the impact, the needed impact. It needs to be 100, 200, 300,000 students a year from a country of 280 million need to leave the country, get the skills, because it's not just the skills. Nalin was very critical about, university systems, but there also is a cultural growth, maturity aspect of universities that should not be discounted. And sending students overseas is probably one of the best things you can do for a culture, because they bring back new and better ideas. And Indonesia needs to tap into its programs that already exist and do more. And I think that industry and universities can push LPDP and the government to use the resources it's already identified and send 100, 200, 300,000 Indonesians overseas to bring back those skills to Indonesia. I'll stop there.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I think you've just thrown down the other gauntlet there in terms of sending those exchange students overseas. We couldn't agree more, I'm sure. Another industry which is working very fast within the digital transformation is the insurance industry. These are financial services, non-banking. We're very pleased to have with us today Naresh Krishnan, who is the CEO of Principal Insurance Indonesia. Naresh, I hope I got that right. Naresh, could you give us your perspective from your industry and your own personal views on this transformation that we're seeing?
Thank you, Ian. I just wanted to make a small correction. It is Principal Asset Management, and we are in investment management business, not in life insurance.
Thank you.
But of course, I've been in the Indonesian life insurance industry as well as investment management industry. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for this wonderful opportunity to be here and listen to all the expert view on the topic. So the capital market and the financial services industry has seen clear acceleration, especially post-COVID. We have seen some unbelievable changes taking place in the industry. I think prior to COVID, the number of Indonesians having securities account was a minuscule. Now post-COVID today, I think this has grown by 10x, if I'm not mistaken. Almost 12 million individuals are holding securities account in Indonesia. So clearly, we have seen some spectacular growth thanks to the digital capability that has been brought into the industry. And it is making some transformative changes to the overall markets and behavior. So if you look at the retail ownership of, let's say, the Indonesian equity market, you can see that over the last 10 years, we have seen today we have the highest amount of retail participation in the equity market. The same thing we are seeing in the bond market as well. So if you look at the domestic retail ownership of government securities, both Sukuk as well as government securities, once again, we are seeing the highest ownership today in the last 10 years. So clearly, we are seeing lots of transformational changes coming in. But that also brings in a wide range of challenges, So to take this growth further, I think for us, the God player is basically the regulator, you understand now. So I think when I listen to the entire forum today, in terms of technology, in terms of innovation, in terms of capability, I think there is a plenty available. There is a lot more that can even brought to play. But how are we going to leverage and how are we going to use it to further the ambition of digitalization for our industry will solely be with the regulator. The regulator is going to decide the make or break for the traditional financial services industry. It also brings a very different set of challenges for us, correct? So the so-called stalwarts of the financial services industry are used to traditional brick and mortar models, and they are financially strong, and they are the backbone of the entire economic activities. Now, all these institutions, I think we just heard the disruption is here. So eventually all these institutions will disappear. If this AI and the digital capability come into play the way people are expecting, we are facing a Kodak moment for the traditional players in the industry. So I think that also has serious implications that needs to be very well thought through and ensure that the stability of the institutions and the protection of the consumers are appropriately taken. So from our perspective, we love everything that is going on, and we see that this trend is going to continue. And all of us are only, my joke is like, I'm used to speaking to people. Now I need to reskill myself so that I learn how to speak to the camera. That's a reskilling that is taking place at this particular point in time. Clearly, I think there is a lot of regulatory changes that will be needed to continue with these acceleration of digitalization. With that, I'll take a pause and give it back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Naresh. Very valuable comments. And from an established and growing industry in Indonesia, perhaps let's take the temperature of the water now for industries and companies, digital, seeking to enter Indonesia. We're pleased to have us with us today Seema Sunghai, legal consultant at SRSP. Seema, perhaps we could get your perspective on how attractive the market is for digital companies and what you're doing to facilitate them in their entry into Indonesia. Seema.
Good morning, everyone. As introduced by Ian, I'm Seema. I've been here for over 16 years, and I'm seeing the transformation and companies coming into Indonesia in the IT sector in the recent past. The interest is large. A lot of companies coming from India are looking at investing in the IT sector because they see the market. There's a huge market there. And as legal consultants, we help them in the incorporation on the licensing part, on the restructuring part, and also, on the other aspects of the IT sector. Some of the challenges we face as users of the digitalization is one aspect, and the other aspect is helping our clients in entering the market. There are two aspects to it. So the interest is large. The interest to come into this sector is huge, immense, and the regulations are not very tight at the moment for IT sector. It's quite liberal in that sense. But as a user, there's a huge challenge that we face, that the system that has been implemented across Indonesia, there is still a lot of scope for integration, improvement, acceleration, and understanding of the issues that the user faces so that it can be addressed quickly because one of the issues that as a user, as a lawyer, as a user of the system is addressing the issues that the system that has been implemented or has been put in place by the government or the various sectors. There's a huge scope for improvement there. Sometimes I wonder whether the digitalization is there to facilitate and expedite the process, or it is actually, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, right? Is it a hindrance for us to, cater to the market? So yeah, that's been my experience, Ian. So there is a huge market. There's a huge market. And there's a lot of interest. I have seen in the recent past a lot of tech companies coming from India. They are helping everyone, vertical, horizontal sectors in digitalization and acceleration. The interest is huge, but the challenges that we face as users are also equally very challenging. So as much as the interest is there to digitalize, I think there should be enough commitment to understand the need to resolve the issues that a user faces, and it should be quick, instant. Otherwise, it really defeats the purpose of digitalization. That's my view.
Seema, thank you very much for that. And I think we are starting to appreciate the challenges of the legal environment, which you indicate is still very liberal around these new and emerging technologies. That has its advantages and its disadvantages. Certainly in the space of e-commerce, we're seeing the regulatory environment very much playing catch-up with the industry, which is moving too fast for Indonesian law to match, and therefore some major players are slipping through the gaps. I'm sure they'll be back. But that's an example of where the regulatory environment is perhaps still lacking the acceleration to meet the demands of this transformation. We'll come back to law in a moment because we also have another representative legal from Christian Theo and Partners. But I'd like to stay with startups and investment for our next speaker. I'd like to ask Avalo Roy, Managing Director of Kolkata Ventures. You're very famous, I understand, sir, for helping to initiate these startups in India. What can we do to initiate startups in Indonesia? And with you being here, how can we help to facilitate the acceleration of the transformation in Indonesia through your services, sir?
I think what really inspires people is to see examples, right? When we see young entrepreneurs coming up and being successful, who are not very different from the rest of the people their age, they feel, oh, if he or she can do it, I can do it too. So I think to create those first few examples, there needs to be education, there needs to be resources, and the universities are providing that. But when I say education, I don't mean education in the form of theoretical knowledge, but actually hand-holding them with the help of established entrepreneurs, taking them to the next step. When I was studying at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, I had the great fortune of getting the best and brightest entrepreneurs from Chicago who were guiding me not only through knowledge and wisdom, but also connecting me with the right lawyers, helping me figure out the marketing strategy, helping me figure out how to go to China and ask the right questions when I need to take care of mass manufacturing. So those were 10 minutes and 15 minutes of nuggets of wisdom and connections that saved me years of struggle and years of banging my head against the wall. And I think that's what Indonesia needs. We have perfectly intelligent people. We have great universities. We have resources. But we need good examples. And to create those examples, we need to handhold them through the process. And if we can have a few companies that have crossed that threshold where they become well-known entities, which is very, I shouldn't say very easy, but easier in the digital economy, in the digital system, rather than the traditional world that we have seen in the past. Then in the next 5 years, we can have a goal of creating 30 such companies that really create, several, in several industries. We were just speaking a few minutes back that what's happening here, there are so many people with cell phones, 1.3 cell phones per person, and yet banking, it seems to be underserved. And what we saw in India was our Prime Minister first made sure that people have access to banks. Then there was these companies like Paytm and other companies, fintech companies that came in and completely disrupted the system, beat against the 40, 50, 100-year-old companies. And I think that's what's going to happen in Indonesia. And as Kolkata Ventures, as myself, as the group we have come from India, would love to support that system, love to handhold these entrepreneurs, give them the resources they need, show them the success stories that we have figured out in India, and so you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did, and thereby expedite your progress and take you to the next level.
Thank you very much for that. And that's a very impressive bio you have in your own tech startup career there with 5,200 jobs to your credit. So thank you for that. Lessons to be learned for Indonesia with your support. I'm hoping that many will also benefit from those lessons. I'd like to come back to our two earlier trigger speakers in a very short while, if I may. But first of all, to turn to the legal fraternity once more, we have Glenn Wijaya from Christian Theo and Partners. Glenn's joined us at every digital dialogue session that we've had so far. So Glenn, we've had the benefit of you in the room and would like your perspective, having listened to Seema, the challenges of law and the regulatory environment. Any perspectives you can share with us from your legal standpoint or other?
Right. Thanks for the opportunity. In terms of legal or the regulatory framework, I think it's in the past few years, we've seen huge rise of numbers of new regulations and laws in terms of laws that try to accelerate the digital economy. For example, in the data privacy sector, we've seen the data privacy law, and we are still waiting for the implementing regulations. And also there's, we expect to have a new statutory body to implement the data privacy law. So that's a huge positive note that the government is really taking steps to address the cybersecurity risks and data privacy, data breaches. And also on the AI side, we're seeing that the government is also taking care of that. They're now trying to draft a guidelines on the use of AI. Although it's far from what we would expect, we probably expect something like in the form of a law that would have more power in terms of compliance rather than guidelines. But that's still a positive development rather than having no regulation at all. And also, we're expecting the electronic information and transactions law to be revised because it's a very large, it's a very overarching law, and I think it's one of the backbones of the digital economy. So we need to get the right EIT law to head into a right direction. And for legal consultants like myself, I think one of the challenges is first to help clients to understand the law. Because in recent years, there are so many new laws and regulations from the top level to the regional level to specific sector level. It's really hard to understand what the regulator wants and how can we comply with the law. So that brings me to my second point, which is the compliance costs. So many licenses, so many licensing applications. Sometimes we don't know whether the deadline is really a deadline or it's something that can be negotiated. And I think in one of the discussions, I heard about the sandbox regime. That's a very encouraging development in terms of fintech and other innovative digital innovations under OJK and BI. That's really positive. But then with the compliance costs, so many licenses, so many processes, so many stages, sandbox, and then after sandbox, you need to go to the full-blown supervision under the regulators. And then what's more concerning is not just about the laws and regulations relating to specific sectors of the digital economy, like the EIT law and data privacy law, but also the general investment regulations and I think the judiciary. That's what we are concerned of, I think. And although President Jokowi has liberalized some of the sectors for investment in 2020 under the omnibus law of job creation, but then we need to see whether the upcoming president election we'll have a new president coming and he'll set the sectors to be liberalized or be closed off to investors. So that's something that we should take a close watch on. I think that's all for me.
Thanks very much for that, Glenn, for the legal perspective. I think the presidential candidates all have now released their information on where they see the digital platforms and their support for them, whether it's in support for digital startups through funding or the rollout of technology across the new development zones across the country, et cetera, et cetera. That's all now emerging into the public domain. We had a very vigorous discussion over the course of the last more than 1 hour. I'd like to draw things to a narrower close in terms of conclusions by returning to our trigger speakers, if I may. Martin Topolowski, we've had the benefit of the last hour and your own comments earlier. Anything you could say, anything further you could contribute based on the contributions of all of our friends around the room?
Well, I wish I'd met the guy from Calcutta Ventures a few years ago, because he could probably have taught me what not to do. Because starting deep
still
tech,
time, Martin, still time.
Well, I know, but spent money now, you see. I mean, but yeah, I mean, when you're starting like deep technology companies here, there is a lot to learn, because it's kind of not been done before very often. And you have to learn by mistakes sometimes, right? You target the wrong clients, you maybe don't sell it the right way. So there's so many things that experience teaches you. And there hasn't been substantial investment into the deep technology space here, because probably that case. You know, venture capitalists don't usually want to pay for research. It's easier to plug and play a quick solution. And I think, you know, that's another thing that when we look at like the Mary Putty Fund, I think it would be, which is the state-owned new venture capital, I think it would be great if it invested substantial capital into deep tech, partnership with the universities, things like this, where Indonesia has some products of its own. So in 10 years' time, as you said, there's 20, 30 companies producing Indonesian software and deep technology like China has done itself. But as people have said around this room, there is lots of challenges, the gap in the skill set, also a lot of the regulatory issues, getting things done quick, the pushback from the pushback from the outdated business processes. So no one doubts the opportunity. I think me and Thompson face very similar issues. What we're offering is not cheap, and we have to really show value to the client before we can get substantial buy-in. We've luckily got that now with companies like Astra Group, but that process took lots of falling down, mistakes, falling down and learning. So I think people need to take that risk, I guess, and take a leap of faith, and then I think there'll be a lot more improvement. And I think more and more people will start to see the value of full digital transformation, as the gentleman said.
Martin, thanks very much. And it's been great to have you with us to help guide this conversation this morning as someone who is very squarely in the field of this digital transformation. We look forward to see where this journey takes you in the new year and onwards. And don't worry about the challenges, Martin, because that's what the digital dialogue is for. We'll take care of all of that through the course of the next year. Perhaps, if I may, turn to Thompson Wangsawijaya. Thompson, again, having the benefit of the room and more than 75 minutes of conversation now and other speakers, anything you care to contribute further to the conversation?
Yeah, I think for the digitalization is real, whether we digitalization or transforming digitalization, which one you want to go. It's quite a long way for Indonesia to go, but it's quite a good opportunity for us to go there. My company also trying to trigger private sector or some of institution to use our RFID, so it'll be more easy to do the tracing as well. It's good to go from one part to another part. Yep.
Thanks very much, Thompson. I must say, when I first met you, it was less than a year ago, I thought you were in a very exciting space and a bit of a pivotal space in terms of this technology, and you still are. And as a leader in the RFID market, as Avery Dennison, I think we're going to see much more coming out of your space in the course of the next year and period. I'm going to call on Sachin in just a moment to give us some additional comments, but I'd like to ask if there's anyone around the room who hasn't been given an opportunity to speak. I'd like to hand the mic to you. If you would like to identify yourself and your affiliation. I think I met you earlier. And then give us your contribution before we move to rounding up.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Vikram Motwani. I'm the founder of Edgo Cards, and we are on an e-mobility business, and we are making electric cards for different resorts and hospitality businesses. So my view and my point of view on this digitalization, first of all, if I talk about Indonesia, what I studied with ChatGPT or AI, what they figure out is 97% in Indonesia, domestic employment is provided by SMEs, right? We talk about digitalization, top-notch companies, they can digitalize themselves easily. They can skill their team. They can do anything with the money. But if we figure out that the major, the input of GDP in Indonesia, if we figure out is SME adds 61% of GDP in the country. So first of all, if we talk about India, what we figured out is there a shop seller is also using QR code. He is digitalized. So on my point of view is, first of all, we need to look at SMEs from the ground level. Then we can start, the big companies, they can do research, they can do everything. But for digitalization, SMEs, we need to focus on SMEs. And one more point might be out of the topic I talk about. We need to train SMEs to do research and development. As I am from a tech background, so what I figured out is 20 years back, if you talk about world largest economies, what they were not doing much research and development. But in last 20 years, if you talk about Google, Apple, or all the brands in 90s and in 2000, they were very small SMEs. But when they implemented research and development in their system, and continuously they are doing it. So now you know, everybody knows about Apple and Google. So in here, in Indonesia, 97% domestic employment is provided by SMEs. So we should focus digitalizing them first. We should train them first, because I was in lectures, I used to give vehicle dynamics and electric vehicle lectures in India across 50 to 70 universities. I talked to the people. I have talked to universities also. Because what I figured out, there are bright students passing from the colleges, but they are not getting jobs. The reason is, top companies, they hire from the top colleges. Now we have SMEs, those are having the job to hire the people, but they are not upgraded. They are not digitalized. They are not doing research and development. So engineers passing or IT people passing from the industries, but they don't have companies also. Because when I was having words with many students in the universities, even the professors, they say that our students, they are very skillful. They are getting top-notch percentage. They are participating in many automotive events, and IT, they are doing very great. So the last option, either they have to start their own or get a very low-pay job. So first of all, from my point of view, we should force SMEs to digitalize or to do the thing out of the box. Then only any country, any nation, we can take an example of China. 20 years back, they were 1 trillion economy. Now they are 8.3 trillion. If we talk about America, they were 16 trillion. Now they are 27 trillion. So the reason in 20 years, what they differently did from other part of the world. If you see, China has registered more than 1 million patents in last 20 years. So this is the part of research. And this is done by SMEs. Because many friends from China, I asked them how different your industries are from India. Because we were into die molding industry, design and die molding of the. So what we figured out, that their government, they are supporting, means what he told me that they need to invest only 10%. 90% they are getting funding from the government, either from the villages. They are SMEs. So that's why we can see the boost in every department in research or growth. And digitalization, if I say in India, what we figured out, like Mr. Roy said, that there, the government, what they are doing, they are giving QR code to shop sellers, roadside vendors. So they are getting digitalized and they are upgrading their lifestyles, right? So this is my call on this point. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for that, Vikram. I think we all recognize the lack of R&D budgets in all companies, whether it's SMEs, SOEs. It seems that the only ones with a major budget in innovation R&D are those major platforms and the benefits they're bringing to the industry as a result, and it's something that's essential and a major part of education. I think what you say about the role of SMEs is a good fit for Indonesia. We've seen a lot of success in some of the local governments, West Java in particular, with agriculture and e-fisheries, even at the individual level, where the smartphone becomes not just the instrument of communication, but the actual instrument and deliverer of the work itself. So we are moving across to a new phase in that transformation here, but thank you very much for that contribution. I'd like to move across to Sachin, if I may, before we return to Dr. Navin and then Jim Castle. Sachin, round us up, please, if you would, on your reflections of the course of the morning.
Well, thank you, Ian, and very interesting conversation from the morning. I've been following it and connecting it to what we discussed yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about the digital economy has a potential to be at $170 billion in the next 6-7 years, which is an 18-fold increase. You know, so how do you get to an 18-fold increase in 6 years? That's a huge challenge. And I don't see that happening unless we are able to take whatever we're doing here at the urban level down to the regional level. And I think one of the benefits of digital dialogue program that I've been working with Ian and with Jim with the Indonesia Economic Forum is that we have two parts of that program. The first part is the dialogue, which is we are part of the dialogue right now. But what's the use of having a dialogue if you don't have something actionable? So we have designed something a few months ago, which we plan to implement in 2024, which is the business outreach part of this. So how digital dialogue members are like a consortium of technology companies that can go into the regions. Our plan is connected very much to the 2024 election cycle, because as soon as that is over, we would be going and working with the bupatis and the wali kotas and the governors of taking a pre-packaged digital transformation package service of maybe 5 or 7 companies within digital dialogue can get together and take an offering directly to the bupati to implement into their regions. And that is actually something actionable that we can do because there's a multiplication factor there. SMEs are the biggest target. I'm glad that point was made just before me. That is the segment. Not only do we have to train them and skill them, which we can in the process of implementing a technology, right? Do we go to them with an education program or do we go to them with a business solution? If you go with a business solution, they will automatically have to learn how they can manage that technology and integrate it into the local economy. So I think we need to go with that kind of an approach where there is an outcome-based outreach, and having a consortium of 5 to 7 companies from within digital dialogue would be a great way for us to have a copy-paste model, because you need something that can be replicated across 416 kabupatens. You know, that's a big number. I'm not saying we go to all 416, but can we get to 100? If we get to 100, that's an immediate amplification or force multiplier for every technology company in the room here. So we have to start thinking of being able to implement, not just talk about things, not just highlight issues, opportunities, problems, because where do we actually implement is in actually having an actionable outcome program. So only a programmatic approach can be done, and IEF is very proud to be able to work with the government. We have a very good outreach with the Indonesian government, with the various ministries. Once we put a program together, let's say in the next 2 months or 3 months, we'll be able to take that into the regions. The timing is not now because obviously there's an election cycle going out into the regions. But that's exactly a force multiplier point. As soon as we have a new governor or a new bupati or a new wali kota in place, he has a job to deliver the election promises that he has made. And we might be able to use that as a timing. Somebody else mentioned that timing is everything. I think Dr. Bayu. you said that timing is important, and I think that's the kind of timing. We need to find something that would be a trigger that will allow us to take this and go towards that 18-fold kind of opportunity that exists in front of us. So thank you. I think, Ian, I got a lot of homework to do here, and I think the inputs from this session has really helped me crystallize my thoughts also around how we're going to design the program. We have Pa Refli here from IKN that is also connected to the Nusantara hub that is being set up, and there are opportunities opening out there as well. And we'll be able to look at it in a very holistic way as we go into 2024. Thank you.
Sachin, thank you very much for that. We've had a very good, wide-ranging discussion over the course of this morning, from education to industry to trade to banking and financial inclusion, innovation, technology, government and government services, the legal and regulatory environment. As Sachin said, there's a great deal of homework to be done. I'm looking very much forward to getting out in the field and bringing our membership in the digital dialogue to those regional governments and offering services to them. So for me, this has been a very fruitful session this morning. I'd like to thank you all for having been with us. As we draw to a close, I would like to invite Dr. Navin Rajagobal, our keynote speaker this morning, to perhaps give us a few closing statements before I pass the mic to Jim Castle. Dr. Navin.
Thank you, Ian. I agree with you. It's been a fascinating, informative discussion. I want to thank everyone for that. Just some final thoughts. I want to thank Pak Nalin for equating, putting SMU in the same category as Harvard, which is an absolutely accurate description. Thank you. On a serious note, I want to say that universities, if they are working well, shouldn't be the last bastion of anything. They should be at the forefront of whatever we're trying to accomplish. As somebody mentioned, there might be resources available and partnership opportunities available. So it's more of a mindset change to some extent, rather than the lack of resources. So that is important. Another observation is that no one institution or sector has the solution. If you want to accelerate digital transformation, education, upskilling is important. Working with SMEs is important. Working with the big companies is important. And also the government and public sector and so on. So partnerships, collaboration, and forums such as this that encourage such kind of discussion and collaboration also very important. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Navin, for those reflections. As we draw to a close, it's only right that we ask Jim Castle to give us some closing comments, and then we have a small presentation for our key speakers today. Jim, you really initiated this digital dialogue, and it was way before COVID. We couldn't really implement it at the time, but thanks for doing that. Could you give us your reflections on how you've seen perhaps the course of today and also the digital dialogue sessions that we've held prior to this?
Well, thanks very much, Ian. This is a great day for me to see the idea that we had some time ago move forward. I was thinking as we were progressing through the program, when I participate in these things, I'm often a knowledge provider. In this one, I'm very much a student. And then with what Dr. Navin said, I think we're all students in this. Nobody has the key. We all have to work together. So if Castle Asia, Indonesian Executive Forum, SMU are able to provide a bridge going forward, this is just exactly what we need. And as Dr. Navin said, it is exactly what we need. So I want to thank Dr. Navin. I want to thank, of course, Professor Nizam, who is not with us. He's in Singapore. Also, James Elwes of HSBC, Martin from Bumi Varta, and of course, Thomas from Avery Dennison for leading the way today and opening the door for a very dynamic discussion. I'm very excited about this, what I call the kickoff quarter for the program. I think we have a lot of good days ahead of us. I think in a couple of years now, some of us will be saying, you know, I was at those early meetings. I was in at the beginning of something that could become very special for all of us. So I just, again, want to thank our resource people for their comments, but also all of you for your input. It's been a wonderful dialogue today, and I think we can keep this going. Thank you very much. I look forward to many such events in the future. And terima kasih banyak. Thank you.
Jim, thank you very much. Over to the IEF staff. Sharon Olia, we have a small presentation. Jim, I think you're going to do the honors, if you would. Olia, first we have a certificate for Dr. Navin Rajagobal, please, if you would.
Well, Dr. Navin, on behalf of all of us, terima kasih banyak.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Navin, and for being with us today. And we have a certificate for Mr. Martin Terpolowski, Bhumi Vata Technology. I think you've met before. Thank you very much, Martin, for being with us. Thank you. Did we get the photo? Very good. Thank you, Martin. And is it Thompson? Thompson Wangsujaya. Thank you. Avery Dennison. Thompson, thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Thanks, Thompson. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being part of this session, and thank you, Ian, for a wonderful moderation. A big round of applause for Ian. So we have lunch served here, out at the gallery here, as well as you are welcome to come into the room if you would like to continue to network. We have another session in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, which is about the regional economy. It's a different set of speakers and a different set of participants as well. But if some of you would like to stay on to that, you're welcome. You just let Ciara know. And we would be finishing the second day today by around 5:36 with a sundowner cocktail in the lawns. Hopefully there won't be rain. And that would complete the 10th Economic Forum this year. So thank you very much, and look forward to chatting with you out at lunch. Thank you.